The Spengler join forces with the original Ghostbusters in New York City to fight a ghostly enemy unleashed by an old artifact. Together, they must stop a vengeful demigod from bringing about a never-ending ice age and save the world. In year 1904, the New York Fire Department arrives at the Manhattan Adventurers Society to investigate a room that was releasing a lot of smoke. However, the smoke is drawn back in when the firemen show up. One of the men touches the door, and his hand begins to freeze, forcing his partners to pull him away. The firefighters then break down the door, and are astonished to discover dozens of frozen corpses and ice everywhere, as an unknown language plays from a phonograph. Among the ice spikes, a mystery armored person wields an orb harboring an ancient evil. When the firefighters attempt to seize it, the sphere cracks open, shattering all of the bodies. A pair of evil eyes shine inside the orb. In the present, Callie, her boyfriend Gary, and their children Phoebe and Trevor have relocated from Somerville to New York to become full-time Ghostbusters. Callie is the daughter of one of the first Ghostbusters, thus, it's become a family business. A scary ghost has escaped from the sewer and is spreading havoc throughout Manhattan, so the new squad begins after it in the car as it collides with other vehicles and manhole covers. A special seat is brought out so Phoebe may fire the proton blaster at the ghost. However, the driving causes her to miss a number of shots, causing damage to numerous buildings. When they get close enough, Trevor deploys a remote-controlled trap, but this is insufficient to capture the ghost, so a drone trap is deployed next. Callie successfully captures the ghost by guiding the drone towards it. Gary becomes distracted while celebrating with his family, causing him to lose control of the car and collide with a rack of city bicycles. People on the street record everything on their phones, and the team soon appears on the news. The damage they've done is seen negatively, so Mayor Peck summons the team to his office to chastise them for what they've done to the city and for bringing along Phoebe, who is still a minor. Afterward, the team returns to headquarters, which is the same office where the old Ghostbusters worked. Callie and Gary, remembering the mayor's threats, decide Phoebe should live a normal life and kick her out of the team. Phoebe does not take it well, but her complaints are ignored. Then Gary and Callie place the ghost in their containment unit, which requires more effort than usual, but they have no idea why. Thankfully, the light turns green, indicating that the ghost has been successfully contained. Meanwhile, Ray from the original Ghostbusters Demon podcast has a web show. They use an horoscope to measure the spiritual energy of everyday objects, in an attempt to find a connection to the afterlife. A woman brings a watch from her late husband, but Ray does not get any readings, and podcast simply smashes it with a hammer. When Phoebe returns, she discovers that their shop is infested with marshmallow men, which are small creatures that run around his room. She thinks they're cute, but the podcast smashes one down and explains that they're a plague. Suddenly, Nadim enters the shop, and the sight of his box sends the marshmallow man running to hide in fear. The box contains a collection of family antiques that Nadim wishes to sell, and Ray is immediately drawn to the orb after noticing the glyphs on it. He uses the horoscope on it, but the energy emitted by the orb causes a surge, breaking the device and triggering a brief earthquake. A frozen energy can be seen moving through the street before colliding with the wall in the ghost container. Ray buys the orb right away, and Nadim flees with the money, noting that the flame on a food cart outside has suddenly grown larger than usual for no apparent reason. At the Ghostbusters headquarters, Gary notices the damage on the wall and calls Janine, the previous team's secretary, who promises to send an expert to investigate. Trevor notices some green slime leaking through the roof and goes into the attic to investigate. He finds a pile of empty food packaging that moves as something naps underneath. So he takes a closer look and is surprised to see Slimer, who jumps out, flies through Trevor, and escapes through the wall. Later, the team receives a ghost alert and departs on a mission, but they refuse to accompany Phoebe. She ends up going to the park to play chess by herself, but the pieces begin to move on their own. Melody, a ghost, appears, and her shape is flamey because she died in a fire. While they play, Melody admits she has little chance of crossing over, because she has unfinished business. The following day, parabiologist Lars arrives to inspect the damaged wall, and when the unit shakes, they confirm the ghosts are attempting to escape. Former Ghostbuster Winston brings the original design of the containment unit, created by Callie's late father. After 40 years of collecting spiritual waste, they have come to the conclusion that the unit is running out of space. Winston also informs them that the explosion that caused the earthquake created a rift that could potentially serve as a gateway to the other side. Because this building is obviously not going to last long, Winston takes the team to a secret lab where he keeps the Paranormal Research Center. All kinds of scientists gather here to investigate supernatural phenomena. Trevor gets to reunite with his friend Lucky, who also works there. When Ray discovers an item containing supernatural energy, he sends it to the lab, where Lars places it in a machine that separates the ghost from the object. Using the original design as a guide, they've also built a larger container unit, so they'll need to start moving the ghost from headquarters by bringing traps. Not all of the ghosts are kept in the unit, some are housed in separate cells for further investigation. Phoebe is startled by a skull, while Gary and Callie take a step back when a ghost pukes on the glass. There's also a possessor who enjoys jumping between devices. Later in the evening, the team receives another mission and departs without Phoebe. At that point, a second emergency call comes in, so Phoebe and Podcast go to handle it behind the adults' backs. They make it to a restaurant and learn that the ghost is Melody, so Phoebe does not dare shoot. Melody quickly flees, and Phoebe reacts too late, causing the windows to shatter. Lars and Lucky are currently working with Ray's objects in the lab. When it is the orb's turn, all of the ghosts in the cells become very disturbed. The machine fails to remove the spirit, and the lab experiences a sudden power surge. Some cell windows break, and the ghosts begin to flee. But Lars restores the power, and everything returns to normal. Then he grabs the orb, only to find his hand freezing. Lars drops the orb just before losing his arm. Melody enters Phoebe's room a few moments later. Phoebe shows her around, and Melody comes close to touching the containment unit before stopping just in time. Melody also continues to play with some matches, which Phoebe explains is the object that is keeping her grounded in this world. The revelation that these matches were the catalyst for the fire that tragically took the lives of her family surfaces. Meanwhile, in the laboratory, the orb emits a powerful freezing wave that once again disrupts the city's power supply. The wave approaches Melody, who, though expressing a sense of urgency, appears uncertain about utilizing Phoebe in their strategy. The following day, Trevor sets up a trap in the attic, baiting it with junk food and praising it with a proton blaster. Just as Slimer emerges to take the bait, another seismic event shakes the city, thwarting Trevor's attempt to capture the ghost. The team rushes to the containment unit, only to discover a massive hole in the wall and frost all over the place. The team returns to the lab and discovers that the orb is also freezing. Lars grabs an orb with a tool and shows it to the Marshmallow Men, who are so drawn to it that they splash against the window. The orb appears to be capable of mind-controlling ghosts as well as freezing certain devices when it comes too close. Lucky, Trevor, and Lars visit Nadim, who shows them his grandmother's special room. There are many antiques there, including some strange horns and the armor from the beginning. Lars discovers that everything in the room is made of brass, which is capable of trapping ghosts. When the trio uses the oroscope on Nadim, a strong reaction occurs, so they bring him to the lab with them. After connecting Nadim to a machine, former Ghostbuster Peter begins asking strange questions. Suddenly, he throws a pen at Nadim, who becomes enraged and causes a nearby flame to grow. As the argument continues and Peter throws more pens, Nadim's anger grows, as does the flame, indicating that he has the ability to manipulate fire. Meanwhile, Podcast is reviewing the video he shot at the lab and discovers a strange ancient language coming out of the orb. He, Phoebe, and Ray decide to consult with an expert before leaving on Ray's old bike. They go to the New York Public Library and speak with the scientist who translates the words in the video, while showing them a carving on an old book. Centuries ago, a power-hungry king sought assistance from a powerful entity known as Garaka, who had his own plans to bring about a new ice age. Nadim's ancestors were the Fire Masters, a group of people who used their abilities to imprison Garaka in the orb and steal the horns that granted him power. If Garaka is freed, New York will suffer from the death chill, a cold caused by chilling fear that kills. The scientist also displays some wax cylinders containing old recordings, including one from the Manhattan Adventurers Society. That group used to enjoy stealing relics, and several years ago they attempted to open the orb, which killed them all. The group hears the recording and notices the same words in the video. Suddenly, the cylinder shakes and jumps out of the machine, landing in a trash bag, which causes chaos throughout the library. The team starts following it, and when Ray walks among the shelves, he is stopped by the same library ghost from the 1980s. The group follows the ghost outside and discovers it resting on a lion statue. Ray reaches for it, but the lion begins to move because the ghost has left the bag to take possession of the statue. As people flee in panic, Phoebe grabs a proton blaster from the bike and shoots the lion, causing it to explode. Moments later, Peck announces that he is disbanding the Ghostbusters, as he has wanted to do since the beginning. Phoebe tries to protest, but Peck says it's either this or prison. The team returns to headquarters in the evening and discovers that the police have taken all of their equipment. While Phoebe argues with her parents, Ray shows Nadim the damage to the containment room, and informs him that he is the next Fire Master, and must begin training to save the world. The first exercise is to transfer a flame from a lighter to a candle. The flame moves along with Nadim's hand, but it does not do much yet. Meanwhile, Phoebe returns to the park and meets up with Melody. The girls talk and bond, so Phoebe admits she wants to be a ghost, which gives her an idea. They go to the lab, where Phoebe enters the machine, and Melody activates it to temporarily separate her soul from her body. Melody apologizes and appears sad after the procedure is completed. It turns out she works for Garaka, who can only control ghosts rather than living beings. Because he requires a living person to open the orb, he can now command Phoebe's ghost to speak the words. The ghost is still connected to her body, so it repeats the words as well, and the orb begins to open as Melody explains that she had to do this because it was her only chance to see her family. The orb soon disintegrates, and the room becomes completely dark. Garaka appears and threatens to destroy the world, while his power forces Phoebe's ghost to return to her body. Lucky appears at that point and attempts to fire a proton blast at Garaka, but he quickly freezes and shatters the stream before disappearing. While the rest of the team arrives to free Phoebe, Garaka enters the shop in Nadim's building and freezes the clerk. Then he makes his way to Nadim's apartment, where he gets his horns. He instantly returns to his true form and all of his power after putting them on. Soon, a cloud appears over the city and begins to freeze the entire area, causing ice spikes to appear, destroy property, and kill people mercilessly. Both the old and new teams meet at headquarters to discuss ideas, and Nadim shows off his training. However, he can still only do the basics. Fortunately, Lars has some equipment in his van, so the team begins preparing to fight, while Lucky points out that their weapons will be insufficient, given what happened in the lab. Phoebe remembers that brass can trap ghosts and that the orb was made of it, so she begins melting some brass to strengthen her blaster. Trevor and Lucky on the roof notice a tricycle rolling on its own down the deserted street, so they assume it's the possessor ghost who escaped the lab and rushed back inside. As the storm outside worsens, the tricycle collides with the door, causing it to blow out of its hinges. A red light representing the possessor strikes the Ghostbusters sign, causing it to fall before going inside and taking possession of the car. The vehicle reverses, and everyone leaps out of the way just in time. Lars enters another room because he heard a noise, but one of the lab's little ghosts shoots goo at him. The red light quickly leaves the car, grabbing a paper plane before jumping into Lucky's proton pack. It raises the blaster and attempts to shoot Trevor, but Gary pushes him away, and Nadim uses his power to direct the blast out the window. Podcast smashes the pack with his hammer, and the ghost jumps out to take a pizza, only to be devoured by Slimer. At that moment, ice began to cover the headquarters building. Phoebe enters the unit room and finds Melody, who swears she didn't mean to hurt anyone and just wanted to see her family. Phoebe is furious, and she makes Melody realize that no one can help her move on. She must find it within herself. Garaka eventually arrives and blocks the front door with more ice spikes. As the building begins to shake and fall apart, the Ghostbusters fire all of their proton blasters at once, but Garaka freezes them all in seconds. Suddenly, Nadim appears in the Fire Master armor, and attempts to summon a flame with a lighter, but it does not work because he has used up all of the fluid in training. Garaka grabs the lighter, and destroys it before unleashing a blast that creates a chasm on the floor, and traps everyone in more ice spikes. Then Garaka says an incantation to free all of the ghosts from the unit, resulting in a massive energy blast shooting into the sky. All of the ghosts from the unit have escaped and are terrorizing the city, but Phoebe can no longer see Melody. She rushes upstairs and fires her blaster at Garaka, who is unable to freeze the reinforced energy and instead shoots frost at Phoebe. The girl freezes instantly, and Garaka attempts to extract her soul, but Melody reappears and lights her final match. Now Nadim can launch a fireball at Garaka, and the intense heat melts the ice in the room, freeing everyone. Phoebe shoots her blaster again and struggles to stand still with so much power in her hands, so her family assists her in holding it. While the reinforced blast and Nadim's fireball combine to defeat Garaka, Podcast rushes to the car and deploys the drone trap. However, the Marshmallow Men have also escaped the lab and interfered with him, causing him to lose control of the trap and allowing Garaka to knock it down. The older Ghostbusters notice that since Garaka released, all of the Ghost's containment unit is now empty. They rush to the basement to activate it, and thanks to everyone's cooperation, Garaka is dragged into the unit, and the light turns green, confirming that the bad guy has been successfully sealed. Melody afterwards gives Phoebe her matchbox and bids her farewell before departing. When the team arrives, they find that all of the ice has melted. Perk appears to try to scold him again, but all of the locals are cheering, and Perk is forced to play along, allowing the Ghostbusters to function for the time being. All of the ghosts that Garaka released are now loose in the city, so the team returns to action to begin cleaning. Phoebe refers to Gary as dead for the first time as they leave. Sometime later, when a truck driver comes to a gas station, the Marshmallow Men take advantage of the opportunity to steal his vehicle. The story concludes here. Passengers on a train become increasingly paranoid and suspicious due to a mysterious pending message. Speculation and rumors about hidden motives and potential dangers escalate, causing tension and anxiety. The cause of the message, whether it be a technical issue, a terrorist plot, or a more malicious scheme, remains unknown. They wait becomes a desperate fight for survival. It was a regular day in Japan, with people getting on the train to go to their destinations. On a typical day, everybody is occupied with their own tasks, watching interesting videos, and connecting with people on social media. Talking about their plans for the evening, they have no idea that in a matter of minutes, their lives will drastically change. Suddenly, the train picks up speed, and odd things begin to happen, like a bottle cap rolling across the coach floor, and vanishing out of sight. The train stops suddenly as it passes through a dark tunnel, and alerts passengers about strong earthquakes, via their phones. People who recover consciousness cannot believe what has transpired. When a passenger opens the entrance doors, a flurry of people rushes out, screaming and pushing each other, as they jump off the tall steps. However, when they get outside, they can't believe what they see. All the coaches have vanished, and all signs of civilization are gone, leaving only the ruins of a destroyed city, covered in grass and trees. They were in without a trace, well, not until the fifth one. With the passage of time, the passengers get to know Shirohama, one of the guys. A firefighter examines the injured and suggests checking the tunnel behind the coach. He is joined by a girl named Katana, and a guy named Hayashima, who also want to understand what happened. Meanwhile, the police in the city cannot figure out where the last two coaches have gone. While the rest of the train and the passengers remain undamaged, the three volunteers enter the tunnel and walk through the dark underworld for a long time. Suddenly, they notice a light ahead and hurry towards it, but when they emerge outside, they are astonished. There is only a huge, desolate desert in the area, nothing to remind them of the year 2023, with its skyscrapers and technology. Startled, the three go back to their other unfortunate companions. People don't believe their report at first, but they are forced to accept the new reality when Hayashima plays a video of the surrounding area. 7 hours later, as everyone waits impatiently for rescue, Renye, one of the girls, surreptitiously searches Hayashima's bag, and discovers a letter bearing the seals of the security department, leading her to suspect that the guy's a criminal. Renye snatches food from Katana's bag, but thinking she was seen, she discards the package. Hayashima picks it up and carries it to the train. Just as Katana discovers the theft, seeing it in the guy's hands, the passengers accuse him of theft. At this time, Shirohama pulls out a box of fruits and offers to share them. One of the guys watches the video he made earlier, which evidently shows Renye stealing the food, and discovering Hayashima is innocent, while Katana is distributing the food. Katana and Shirohama chase after him and save the man just in time before he tumbles into a deep ditch. In return, he acknowledges that he is 30 years old and a hairdresser, but he won't say where the letter from the colony Nightfalls came from. Somehow, travelers drift off to sleep, but many can't because they're too anxious about what lies ahead. People start realizing in the morning that they might not make it back home. Shirohama tries to gather the scattered people, but a friend asks the guy not to take responsibility for other people's lives. Then the firefighter confesses that because of him, his colleague was injured, losing the ability to walk. Now he believes he must help everyone, so he can get together. They catch up with those who left and persuade them to return to the coach to solve problems. Collectively, seeing this, Hayashima remembers his brother, who was in prison, and the letter in his bag was from him. He still feels bad about his older brother turning into a criminal, but fate had it that he had to raise his younger brother. A few travelers investigate the surroundings, and discover the remains of a tall tower in the interim. This is especially strange because, according to the news, construction was supposed to be finished in 2026. However, one of the passengers discovered a ken in the forest that year, and one of the biologists there discovered a plant whose genetic modification takes 30 years. It turns out that they are in the far future of Earth, so this is not exactly a happy discovery. In 2023, there are messages on all the channels regarding the disappearance of two coaches carrying at least 100 passengers. As night falls and many start to lose hope, Katana and Shirohama place plastic containers on the coach's roof, in the hopes of receiving rain. In the morning, the biologist points out to the other that there is a lot of greenery, indicating that there must be water nearby. A group of youth then set out to explore the forest, and on the way, Hayashima confesses that his parents are criminals. Later, the guy sees a frog, indicating that there is water nearby but also impassable cliffs that must be climbed using ropes. After the group heads back to the train, the cutting wire heads towards the cliffs once again. Shirohama reaches the summit and shouts with joy when he sees a waterfall, but when he looks around, he is shocked to see that instead of Mount Fuji, a sea stretches out in front of him. He tells the others about this, and they begin to wonder what happened to their planet. At night, everyone goes to sleep, but Tanaka, the oldest passenger, goes outside and sees an unfamiliar person. When he tells people about it, no one believes him, and then it begins to rain, assisting people in gathering water and even baking. In the meantime, the biologist keeps researching the local wildlife, and discovers a number of edible plants, which she shows the others. Katana also consumes a poisonous berry, but thankfully, her poisoning is not fatal. The passengers are brought down to earth by the news that the girl is well. When they finally realize they cannot survive if they remain motionless, individuals set to work, even crafting utensils from bamboo bank cards that function as respectable knives. You guys gather water from the waterfall, and they make plant-based soup. However, some people become ill after supper, and the biologist finds a few deadly berries in the communal pot. Someone recalls seeing Tanaka, who is not one of them, close to the pot. Shirahama bravely embarks on a search for Tanaka, only to stumble and lose his torch along the way. Despite this setback, he returns with a valuable find, Hayashima's lost barber tools that he had been sorely missing. The biologist then announces his intention to search for a nearby river, with his friends joining him. However, their journey takes a dangerous turn when they encounter a stranger who injures the biologist before fleeing. Thankfully, they are able to provide the injured man with first aid, thanks to the timely assistance of a medical student on the train. As they anxiously wait for news of the biologist's condition, Tanaka unexpectedly reappears from the forest, bringing a sense of relief and hope to the group. The man turned out to be employed by a security company, and was skilled in setting up traps around the camp. Rennie had asked Hayashima to fix her hair, and soon there was a line for him. Meanwhile, Shirama and Katana noticed that an adolescent had been caught in one of the traps. However, the boy managed to escape on his own, leading the friends to chase after him and eventually find themselves by the river. The boy asked them to wait for him there, but Hayashima noticed their disappearance and pursued them, eventually finding them by the river. The teenager reappeared at this point, leading the friends to coach number 6, which had mysteriously ended up there. A few kilometers away from their previous location, the passengers of the 5th coach were graciously greeted by the esteemed leader of the 6th coach, Yumoto. Fortunately, their coach was situated near a river abundant with fresh water and fish. Among their group was a skilled builder, who efficiently organized the camp setup, including the construction of a kitchen and toilet facilities. The newcomers were relieved to find their injured biologist among the group. He admits to committing the act out of trepidation, under the impression that he was at risk of being assaulted. He humbly bows and expresses remorse for his actions. Yumoto acknowledges the plausibility of reverting to the past. The individual reveals that in their initial days, they stumbled upon a small boat on the river, which enabled them to repair a radio and intercept a signal, purportedly originating from Canada. The message mentioned the year 2060, leading the individual to infer that a cataclysmic event transpired in 2026, wherein an enormous asteroid collided with Earth, resulting in devastating earthquakes. As tsunamis ravaged the globe and claimed billions of lives, the resulting dust in the atmosphere blocked sunlight, and led to the extinction of remaining species. Importantly, the asteroid's impact was not a random event, but rather a result of human error, as individuals began launching satellites without proper oversight. This man-made disaster underscores the need to revisit the past and alter our future trajectory. Drawing inspiration from the passengers on the number 6 coach example, the group decided to take a collective action and cleanse themselves by the river. Meanwhile, Tanaka's condition continues to deteriorate as he constructs a makeshift doll out of branches and engages in conversations with it. At long last, the bath is prepared, allowing the people to bathe and wash their clothes after many days. A peculiar stone is discovered by the riverbank, which catches Yumoto's attention and prompts him to send his followers to retrieve it. However, Renier notices suspicious individuals and learns from one of the men that the stone may hold the key to their return home. The women debate the necessity of returning, leading to a confrontation where her pushes Katana, causing her to stumble and unearth a buried body. Meanwhile, Tanaka reads about a search for a murderer in the newspaper, sparking concern. As this unfolds, Renier and Katana are ambushed by individuals from the 6th coach. However, Rennie manages to escape and informs her companions about the discovery of a deceased individual. Meanwhile, Katana eludes her pursuers in the forest. The 5th coach decides to fashion weapons, while Shirahama and Hayashima seek assistance from neighboring individuals. Despite their efforts, the girl was not found. Katana eventually reaches a boat, where Yumoto is compelled to reveal that he killed a passenger, who had turned violent with a knife. This revelation leads to Yumoto being perceived as a leader. The group return, hoping for Katana's return, only to find her missing. They decide to seek justice from the 6th coach and continue their search for Katana. She hides in the boat when Yumoto arrives, pretending to communicate with an unknown location. Upon discovering that the wires have been cut, the girl realizes the man's intentions of creating a new society in their current location, leading him to confide in her. Subsequently, he incapacitates and confines Katana in a cabin to silence her cries. As tensions rise among the passengers of the fifth coach, a woman proposes seeking refuge in a nearby building, to avoid conflict with the neighboring group. Meanwhile, individuals from the sixth coach venture out to scavenge supplies from the neighbors, only to become ensnared in traps, sparking a confrontation upon the arrival of the remaining passengers from all six coach. And there are more men among them. The fight escalates into a real battle, which is stopped by the appearance of the escaped Katana, who accuses Yumoto of lying. The passengers decided to exile the former leader, before leaving the man in charge of a journal that contained information about the tower that could help them return to the past. Meanwhile, those who went in search of the building arrived at the tower and discovered glowing asteroid fragments. He was forced to admit to the deception, but he just wanted to keep people's spirits up, and scientist Ray finds in 2023 that a wormhole formed in the tunnel at the exact moment when two coaches vanished after watching security camera footage. The anomalous distortion in the space-time continuum prompted the passengers to carefully analyze the journal discovered by Yumoto, leading them to uncover the precise date of the impending disaster. Additionally, they possess a remarkable asteroid fragment with a powerful magnetic field. One passenger recalled witnessing a celestial event resembling a falling star on the day of their departure, while Renier deduces that it was actually a supernova flare from the future. Upon further examination, an expert further elaborates that supernovas occur in the cosmos when a star exhausts its life cycle and detonates, emitting a significant amount of energy. This phenomenon is believed to have created the temporal rift, through which both coaches inadvertently traveled, necessitating the reopening of this wormhole later that evening. Tanaka opens the rear tunnel doors, only to have a sudden burst of wind seize his doll and carry it into the wormhole formed by the hurricane. However, once the storm dissipates, the wormhole vanishes, leaving the coaches stranded in 2023. Scientists discover Tanaka's doll passengers in the future and determine that in order to activate the wormhole, they must locate a strong energy source. They begin searching for remnants of power lines, and eventually uncover an electrical substation, where functioning equipment is miraculously still intact. By channeling sufficient electricity into the tunnel, they are able to stabilize the wormhole. As a storm approaches that will allow them to return to the past, they harness the power of the substation to open the wormhole, allowing everyone to board the carriage except for Tanaka, who chooses to remain in the future. The coach is engulfed by a void and propelled through the fabric of space and time until it reaches its destination, whereupon security service personnel confirming their arrival on May 1, 2023, welcome the coach. Consequently, with the impending asteroid calamity mere months away, the passengers undergo stringent quarantine protocols, and present the authorities with fragments of the meteorite, and peculiar blueprints outlining their plans for the future. Regrettably, the officials remain skeptical of the foretold apocalypse. Following the incident, there is a significant online discussion regarding time travelers, generating a fan base that sustains interest in their story regarding the impending apocalypse. Concurrently, renowned scientist Ray becomes increasingly convinced of the traveler's authenticity, having independently monitored the asteroid's trajectory. A plea is shared online by one of the passengers, warning the general public of the imminent threat. Additionally, a former government official among the travelers seeks an audience with the Minister of Defense. The day of the disaster is almost here, as she listens to her former colleague, and reports that the government is taking their statements seriously, and is getting ready to launch a missile that can change the asteroid's course so that it passes by Earth. The military successfully completes their mission, and alters the meteorite's trajectory, sparing humanity from total extinction. The travelers decide to meet together on the platform, to determine whether it was possible to avert the disaster and, if not, to perish together. This series presents a unique blend of theories regarding humanity's potential downfall, with a particularly impactful conclusion. It underscores the idea that the fate of our planet is intricately tied to the choices made by each person, emphasizing the shared responsibility of all individuals in shaping the future of Earth. A man becomes obsessed with facts and events that thousands of people have misremembered. His obsession with the phenomenon causes him to question reality itself, believing it to be a symptom of something larger. Brandon, Claire and their daughter Emma are on vacation at the start of the story. They are having a good time together, but that is about to change dramatically. Emma tells her parents, while on a walk, that she is going to the water to catch snails. Claire agrees, but cautions her not to go too far. Emma starts playing in the mud, but her monkey doll falls into the water. Emma tries to get it, but drowns. Brandon and Claire are devastated at Emma's funeral as a result of this tragic event. Claire decides to try to forget Emma, accepting that her daughter will not return. Meanwhile, Brandon is still struggling with the loss, keeping Emma's room exactly as it was one day. He notices something odd in Emma's book, the title, which he thought was spelled differently, which perplexes him. That night when Brandon's brother-in-law Matt pays him a visit, and brings up the book, asking for his thoughts on the strange change he noticed. Matt agrees with Brandon, recalling that the name of the Berenstein Bears book used to include an E rather than an in the word Berenstein. He is as surprised as Brandon to discover that the title of the book has changed. Brandon is intrigued by this discovery, so he searches it up on Google. He discovers that many other people remember the name of the book as well. Brandon continues his research and finds a girl who accurately describes this phenomenon. She discusses the Mandela effect, which occurs when a large group of people remember something in a different way than how it actually happened. Some people mistakenly believe Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, when in fact he died in 2013. This type of memory discrepancy has been observed in several cases, and it is known as the Mandela effect. The next morning, Brandon notices something strange that adds to his curiosity. He is taken aback when he sees a family photo on the fridge and recalls that it was taken in a different location than the photo depicts. He tried to discuss his concerns with Claire, but she was preoccupied with cooking. Brandon went outside to talk with Matt about his ideas. He expressed his belief in what he dubbed the Mandela effect, claiming that many things around him had changed in ways that made no sense to him. Matt, on the other hand, dismissed Brandon's concerns as unfounded. He suggested that Brandon was having false memories, influenced by what he had read online, but Brandon insisted that his memories were true and began to wonder if he had somehow entered a parallel universe where things were subtly different. Brandon dove deeper into these theories. He discovered an article claiming that the Mandela effect was caused primarily by an experiment conducted in 2008 with a Large Hadron Collider in Russia. According to the article, seeing Brandon so engrossed in these theories made people feel like they had stepped into a parallel universe. Claire became concerned. She suspected that his obsession was a coping mechanism for the death of their daughter Emma. She encouraged him to let go of Emma's memory and move on with his life. Brandon, on the other hand, persisted in seeking validation for his experiences, asking Claire if the Monopoly game's mascot on the cover was wearing glasses. Claire confirmed that she clearly recalls the mascot wearing glasses. Brandon revealed to Claire that contrary to her memory, the Monopoly game cover did not feature the mascot wearing glasses. He went on to say that the monkey doll they had now lacked a story, whereas Emma's monkey doll had one at the start of their story, which she used to cherish. Brandon used these inconsistencies to explain to Claire that they might be experiencing the Mandela effect, which implies that they had unintentionally shifted into a parallel universe where Emma had died, despite the fact that she could still be alive in their original universe. When Claire heard Emma's name again, she became upset. She accused Brandon of failing to move on from Emma's death and becoming obsessed with internet theories. Despite Claire's frustration, Brandon remained adamant about his beliefs and increased his research. He discovered theories that the Mandela effect could be caused by glitches in the space-time of multiple parallel universes, causing them to merge. These theories propose the existence of numerous parallel universes, each with slight differences from the others. For example, in one universe, Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, but in another universe, he lived until 2013, inspired by the possibility that Emma might still be alive in a different universe. Brandon became even more determined during his investigations when he came across the name Dr. Rowland, a theorist who believes that our world is a computer simulation, motivated by desperation. Brandon managed to locate Dr. Rowland's address and set out to meet him. Dr. Rowland was initially too busy to meet with Brandon, but persistent efforts eventually resulted in a meeting. During their conversation, Brandon shared his experiences and discussed his research into what he thought was a simulated world. Dr. Rowland confirmed Brandon's suspicions, explaining that, based on his own research, their universe was indeed a computer simulation, though the ultimate purpose remained unknown. He referred to everything in the world, including buildings, trees, plants, and other entities, as computer program components. The changes Brandon noticed, and attributed to the Mandela effect, could be glitches or bugs in this simulation, as suggested by Dr. Rowland's explanations. Brandon wondered if it was possible to change the simulation using script coding. Dr. Rowland clarified that such changes could not be made with any computer, prompting him to create a new quantum computer, with the help of his colleagues, over many years. Dr. Rowland then took Brandon to their university to show him the quantum computer. He explained that this machine, which had been built over years of hard work, had the potential to significantly alter the simulated world if they were able to code it correctly. After learning about the quantum computer and its capabilities, Brandon, a game developer, began working on coding, using his previous experience. He had a good understanding of coding, and dedicated days to researching and writing the necessary code. He finished his coding and fell asleep peacefully, after a long day of work. When Brandon wakes up, the next morning, to find his daughter Emma alive in his house, he witnesses a major turn of events. He is taken aback and perplexed by Emma's presence, given that she died several months ago. Claire's response is even more perplexing. She informs him that Emma never died, seeking additional confirmation. Brandon talks to Matt and the other people around him, and they all insist that Emma never died. This leads Brandon to believe that, due to a glitch, he has returned to his normal universe, where Emma has never died. Overjoyed, he spends time with Emma, feeling as if everything he lost has been restored. However, as the joy Claire begins to behave strangely, she starts running around erratically, and breaking utensils, for no apparent reason. Brandon is taken aback when he learns that Dr. Rowland, whom he only met a few days ago, allegedly died months ago. This discrepancy persuades Brandon that the simulation theory is correct, and that the computer program, in charge of their universe, manipulated events, causing Emma to return to prevent him from changing the code. Brandon, exhausted and overwhelmed by these revelations, decides he must act despite concerns that running his code could potentially destroy and then restore their entire universe. He believes it is necessary for the health of his family. He takes the pen drive containing his code and sneaks into the university to access the quantum computer. Once Brandon runs his code on the quantum computer, immediate changes begin to ripple through his surroundings. As he rushes home, he notices that all the cars have vanished from the parking lot. He catches a bus and observes everyone, including the environment around him. As he approaches home, buildings and trees begin to glitch. He sees that Claire is glitching as well. His code is causing more and more changes, which quickly unravel the simulated environment, and cause everything around him to shut down and turn dark. The world around him vanishes in an instant, but after a brief period of total obliteration, code lines start to appear on the screen, signaling the reconstruction. Everything is restored, including planets, living things, and all of human history. The cosmos reboots at a particular time. Brandon and Claire are spending a calm day on the beach with their daughter Emma. Emma is told by Claire to leave her monkey toy behind when she asks to go play with the snail this time. Most notably, the monkey toy's tail alignment has been removed in the glitching world. The story ends here, with Emma having played safely and comfortably with the changes Brandon saw earlier, and that time she escaped a tragic end. Thanks for watching.